Alright, some incredibly concerning news here, and I get that this is especially crazy after coming right off the Totally Not Mark situation, but another Japanese company has threatened the livelihood of a YouTuber, except this time they are doing what Toei neglected to do in their case, which is to use their local legal system to pacify YouTube and allow multiple takedown requests. In addition to this, and this is the very scary part, they've sent the YouTuber in question a fine to pay, which is very new and very concerning. The YouTuber in question is named Suede, and he is a PokeTuber sitting at over 20,000 subscribers. I'll tell you more about his content in a bit, because I do have some unfortunate thoughts regarding it. But the company he is up against is Shopro, which I guess the best way of describing them is kind of like the Toei of the Pokemon world, just somehow much more aggressive. A quick search of Shopro on the internet shows that they have been incredibly aggressively targeting PokeTubers for at least 4 to 5 years now. Now, as a company, they are a subsidiary of a variety of companies including Shueisha, Shogakukan, and Hakusensha, so some of the largest publication giants in Japan, and they seem particularly driven on enforcing the use of the Pokemon anime. Which is interesting because I initially thought that anything Pokemon related would be handled by the Pokemon company, but no. Apparently Shopro produces and markets the Pokemon anime, as well as various types of merchandise. So they definitely have the right to enforce the Pokemon IP, which is important to note, because sometimes on YouTube you can get struck by companies who do not have that right. Now, to give you an example of the kind of action they take, in April 2021, Shopro targeted another PokeTuber named Pokemon Ranger Boy 12. However, YouTube fired back, and this is assumedly what they did with Totally Not Mark as well, but they basically said, "Hey, Shopro, are you sure this isn't fair use?" Which is detailed in this letter, and you can pause the video and read it if you want. But the letter basically says, "We're concerned that what you're doing hasn't considered the things it is that you're meant to consider, and we'd very much like you to provide some evidence that what you're saying is true," which I think is a very reasonable request from YouTube. And again, this is almost certainly the same response they gave to Toei when they tried to take down Totally Not Mark's videos. The difference in those two cases being that Toei ignored this message and proceeded to use the Content ID system, whereas here Shopro actually tried to fight YouTube on this and responded to them with one sentence. "This case uses Pokemon, a work managed by our company that is long enough and cannot be said to be fair use. Please delete it." I mean, sure, okay, that's 2 sentences technically, but still, it's a pretty pathetic 2 sentences. YouTube has said, "Please provide evidence that this work does not comply with fair use," and Shopro have said, well, they've said nothing except for please take down videos now. And it's the kind of thing that does legitimately make you wonder if it's a scam, because this 1 to 2 sentence thing is so unprofessional that you would never believe it came from a properly fully functional company. But it did, because Shopro's contact details and address were included. So it just shows that companies like Toei and Shopro aren't interested in engaging in the laws of the countries where they do the business, because they're happy to sell Pokemon to the United States or Germany in the case of Pokemon Ranger Boy, but Shopro are not happy to be subject to US and German media laws of their products that they are selling in those countries. And really, you can't have both. Either you're doing business in foreign countries and obeying their laws, or you're not doing business there. That's conventional wisdom anyway. Now, in a ray of hope, YouTube did deny Shopro's request and found in favor of Pokemon Ranger Boy. However, Shopro did go on to strike another one of his videos, to which he submitted a counter notification. And then assumedly all was good, because after that point, Shopro needs to take the creator to court to continue the process, which never happens. Never before now, that is. Because everything I just mentioned about Pokemon Ranger Boy is the classic way that AniTubers have handled copyright situations against anime and manga production companies. However, now they have a rather new and terrifying method at their disposal. Something that I have never seen before, and something that sends legitimate chills down my spine thing. So remember what I said in the Totally Not Mark video. YouTube requested that Toei provide some kind of proof that their claims were accurate, which I also said could probably be quite easily obtained through the Japanese legal system. They just didn't bother to do it. Well, in the case of Suede, Shopro did take this step, and they came equipped with a court complaint, which also issued Suede a fine of 80,200 yen plus legal fees. And Google currency conversion tells me that that's about $700 for the fine, and who knows how much extra for the legal fees. Could be a lot, could be not. But this is wild. A Japanese court is fining a New Zealand citizen, that's where Suede's from, New Zealand, we're neighbors. But a Japanese court is fining a New Zealand citizen for being in breach of Japanese IP law when making content in New Zealand for an American platform, using content that falls under fair use of both of those legal systems, because Shopro does distribute and make money off product in those countries. Here's the really insidious thing though. The fine, look, it's kind of meaningless. Suede could just not pay it, and I really really don't think there's anything a Japanese court could do to make him pay it because he doesn't come under their jurisdiction. I imagine they would need to go through the New Zealand system, which sounds like an absolute pain, but look, that's not the big problem here. The problem is that this is an official court document, and whenever YouTube gets even a whiff of legal action, they just back the crap off. If this document has been stamped by a Japanese court, then the creator is now left to fight on their own, and whatever ShowPro wants, they can have, because they've provided legal quote-unquote evidence that YouTube either has to accept or risk getting into a legal battle themselves. And in this case, what ShowPro wants is a series of videos taken down, resulting in enough copyright strikes to have Suede's channel deleted from the internet. And that's terrifying because this could happen to anyone. If Toei had taken this step, getting a simple document stating blah 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 blahs, then Totally Not Mark's videos probably would not be up to date. In fact, Mark's channel would probably not be up to date. Alright, but now I do need to take a bit of a detour here and talk about what Suede does for a second, because I've pretty much painted ShowPro as the villains of this piece, and look, they still are. However, in all honesty, I'm not entirely sure that what Suede does is covered by the standards of fair use. His most popular series was known as Suede's Pokemon Journey, which chronicles his mission to view and review seemingly every episode of the franchise in chronological order. These videos consist of a synopsis of the episode, usually interspliced with snark and or parody elements. Then Suede gives his personal review of the episode, followed by fun facts and trivia about the episode. And it really does have me torn, because it is clearly transformative, and I really enjoyed the few videos I did see of his before they were all privated. He's very witty and entertaining, and I would much rather watch his synopses than the actual episodes, and I think that's kind of where the big problem comes in. You can argue that these synopses can be used as a replacement for watching the episodes themselves, because they're not just a quick line or two like, Ash fought a gym leader this episode and won a badge. No, these are like proper 3 to 4 minute beat for beat recaps, which is one of the big troubles that Team 4-Star had. The idea that Dragon Ball Z Abridged could be viewed as a replacement of Dragon Ball Z, because they did have that beat for beat structure, even if it was completely parody. However, in Suede's case, it's even worse because the parody element is only sort of half there. You know, quite a bit of them is very straightforward, and the gang did this thing followed by that thing. And another huge problem is that on top of that, he uses audio from the episodes as well. And I can easily imagine a Japanese company discovering these videos, not understanding English particularly well, if at all, and just thinking that they were replacements for the actual episodes themselves. So it comes a bit too close to recreating the episodes for my liking in any sort of fair use argument, especially when it comes to audio. Just don't use audio. It is the easiest thing for anime companies or any companies to flag, and it is the hardest thing to defend against. Especially music. Don't even touch music. And the fact that Suede does use episode audio means that it tips the scale, and more than 50% of each video then constitutes the original product, because the visuals are almost all clips or screenshots of the episode as well. Like, the defense that Totally Not Mark had was that even though his video visuals were clips and screenshots, his audio was 100% his original work. So you could say at the very least 50% of his videos were original. And that's looking at it in the most ungenerous way possible. Is ungenerous a word? It probably isn't. Disingenuous? Maybe? Doesn't matter. When you start incorporating anime audio, that line becomes a lot less favorable, and in terms of Suede's work, it's more like 45%, maybe even 40% his original work when you include that audio. And one of the 4 aspects of fair use is how much of the original material you use to make your point. And if your video consists of more than 50% of that material, I think you would have a really rough time defending that under fair use. With that said, I want to reiterate that he's very entertaining, and I personally love what he does. I think it's a great way to experience Pokemon as an adult, but as a creator, it is so risky. I think that if he took the synopsis aspect out of his videos, then the argument is much stronger, because then it's purely review and criticism. But as the law currently stands, I think that ShowPro would actually have a case to make under fair use. At least in the US. I can't speak for New Zealand fair dealing laws. I have no idea what they are. However, none of that actually matters, because we're not arguing in an American or even New Zealand court, because ShowPro just don't want to have that discussion. They just want Japanese law to apply globally, and YouTube is seemingly acquiescing to that desire in this case. As the situation stands, I believe the fate of Suede's channel is currently on a timeline that correlates with Japanese small claims courts. Apparently, it takes around 3 months to process these sort of things and give Suede the official issue of payment. At which point the strikes will stick because court has done their thing and YouTube goes, well, I can't handle this. And assumedly the channel will be deleted unless some sort of magnificent force steps in to fix it. So that is a slight reprieve, I guess, because now that we're dealing with the legal system, we enter this painfully slow process that gives the creator and YouTube some time to hopefully come up with some sort of plan to move forward. I mean, personally, I still find it utterly insane that Suede may actually have to pay this fine. To have one national court fine a citizen of a completely different country is a pretty scary precedent to be setting. I mean, here's a pretty extreme example. I looked up some weird laws, and as it turns out, there's a lot of really weird laws in the world. Like, allegedly, it's illegal to wear a Winnie the Pooh shirt in Poland. Apparently because he doesn't wear pants, and that's morally scandalous, that dirty, dirty bear. But imagine if you were a YouTuber wearing a Winnie the Pooh shirt. Your content is accessible from Poland. But what if a Polish court decided to fine you because you were breaking their law, even though what you were doing is perfectly fine wherever you're from? In doing so, Poland then issues takedown notices to YouTube, thus jeopardizing your career. And I get that that's a pretty extreme example, and the Winnie the Pooh situation probably has a lot more context to it than that. I just can't imagine that it's legitimately illegal. Maybe it is. Any Polish viewers, feel free to comment. But the illustration still stands. One country's national law is taking precedence over the law of the country where Suede and other creators actually live. Not only that, but live and do business, which to me is a shocking imposition of freedom. As an Australian citizen operating on an American platform, I just don't feel like I should be left at the mercy of Japanese law. And eventually, I feel like the solution just has to be to give creators in these instances the ability to block the country in question. It complies with national law by removing access to the content, whilst allowing creators to enjoy the laws and freedoms that their own countries live by. And I should also say that I have tried to get in contact with Suede about the situation and try to get a little bit more detail, but he didn't reply, so what I've got to work with is what he said on Twitter. It's a pretty dire situation though, and all I can say right now is that I wish him all the best.